The rhythmic hum of the patrol car's engine provided a strange sense of comfort against the vast, oppressive silence of the Arkham woods. I felt the cold bite of the cuffs against my wrists, their familiar discomfort a reminder of the precarious situation I found myself in. As the headlights pierced through the dark, I glanced at Michael, the older officer beside me. His weary eyes were fixed on the winding road, while John, young and slouching in his seat, struggled to keep his eyes open. The static on the radio buzzed ominously like a low growl, hinting at the silence that threatened to envelop us. It reminded me of those quiet nights back home when I wandered near old abandoned mills, each creak and rustle echoing with unspoken dread. I shook off the memory, focusing instead on what lay ahead. I tried to make sense of a flickering light deep within the trees that danced like a will-o'-the-wisp. My mind insisted on seeing it even as Michael dismissed my concern with a wave of his hand. "Just your imagination," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But deep down, I sensed there was something more lurking in those woods. Despite my predicament, bound and riding shotgun, I couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was different from any other night patrol I'd experienced before. Years spent alone had taught me to trust my instincts, they were often sharper than any training manual. A knot tightened in my stomach as we continued onward, drawing closer to whatever awaited us. The road twisted and turned under heavy branches that loomed like skeletal hands reaching for us, leaving shadows that danced across our path. I leaned forward slightly, trying to catch a better glimpse through the windshield. The trees closed in around us like sentinels guarding secrets that begged to remain hidden. Suddenly, Michael slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched against icy asphalt as we skidded to a halt just short of what appeared to be an old wooden cabin nestled among the trees. My heart raced as he opened his door and stepped outside to investigate. "Stay put," he commanded sharply. I nodded but felt an urge tugging at me, a need for clarity that compelled me to follow him out into the biting cold. The chill seeped through my uniform as I stepped onto the crunching snow beneath my boots, each step echoing like a heartbeat in this desolate landscape. Michael approached cautiously, his flashlight beam slicing through darkness as he scanned every corner of what seemed like an abandoned relic from another time. I lingered close behind him, unease washing over me in waves as shadows flitted across my peripheral vision. "What do you think?" I whispered into the silence that enveloped us. "Just an old shack," he muttered dismissively while circling around it. My gaze drifted back toward John, still seated in our patrol car, slumped over and apparently oblivious to our surroundings, his breathing steady and rhythmic amid this eerie stillness. A nagging feeling gnawed at me, something wasn't right. Then came a sound that shattered our fragile peace, a soft rustling from within the cabin. My breath caught in my throat as I turned sharply toward it, adrenaline surging through me like ice water flowing through my veins. "Did you hear that?" I asked quietly but urgently. Michael paused mid-step before nodding slowly, curiosity mingled with caution in his expression now. "We should check it out." With hesitant agreement hanging between us, we crept toward the entrance together. My heart thundered loudly in my chest as we approached what could very well be an answer or a trap waiting to spring shut around us. Pushing open the weathered door sent a shiver down my spine as it creaked loudly on its rusted hinges. Inside lay shadows draped across dusty furniture draped under sheets, the remnants of lives once lived now reduced to ghostly outlines and fading memories. As we stepped over thresholds thick with dust and neglect, Michael raised his flashlight high above us, illuminating pieces of broken furniture scattered haphazardly about. And then we saw it, an overturned chair beside what looked like a blood-stained rug, a sight that drained all color from my face. My mind raced with questions. Who had been here? What had happened? Anger surged through me at both fear and frustration. How could anyone vanish without leaving more than these remnants behind? Before I could voice any thoughts aloud though, John's voice broke through from outside. "Hey! You guys! Get out here!" We exchanged glances. What could possibly warrant such urgency? Without hesitation, we turned back toward him and dashed out into the night again, driven by instinct alone. As we emerged into the cold air once more, John's face was pale. Panic danced in his eyes as he pointed towards something just beyond our line of sight. The patrol car had been tampered with. "Someone's been messing with it," he shouted above howling wind gusts laced with frostbite chills. Every instinct screamed for action. We needed to secure our vehicle, our lifeline, and ensure whoever had approached wasn't still lurking nearby. With renewed determination fueling me forward into uncertainty, I sprinted towards our car alongside Michael, who joined me at once, but doubt hung heavily over all three of us now. Whatever secrets this night harbored were beginning to unravel before our very eyes. Adrenaline surged within me. Urgency propelled each step forward as anxiety coiled tightly around every thought racing through my mind. What awaited us next? The world spun in a sickening blur as I felt the cruiser veer off the road, my stomach lurching with every twist of fate. Metal screeched against ice, glass shattered around me, and then came the silence, a deafening absence that crashed over my senses like a tidal wave. I struggled against my restraints, each movement sending sharp pains shooting through my head, a stark reminder of the violent impact that had just occurred. "Michael! John!" My voice emerged as a raspy whisper, desperation clawing at my throat. I strained to hear any sign of life amid the eerie stillness that followed our crash. A pit of dread pooled in my gut when only Michael groaned in response, his voice thick with pain. As the dimness enveloped me, I blinked hard, trying to make sense of the shadows swirling around us. The air was heavy with dust and something else, something metallic and warm that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced as I caught sight of John, twisted at an unnatural angle against his seatbelt, his face pale as the snow outside. Panic coursed through me. It was hard to breathe as I struggled to comprehend what had just happened. "Hang on!" Michael shouted suddenly, his panic breaking through my shock. His face was a mask of desperation as he kicked at the shattered windshield with all his strength. The sound rang like a death knell in my ears, sharp and jarring amidst the quiet chaos. I watched him with wide eyes, feeling utterly helpless in my seat. "I can't," I breathed out, a sense of futility washing over me. My hands trembled against the cuffs binding me, they felt tighter now than ever before. But I couldn't let fear consume me entirely. With renewed determination, I twisted and turned until one wrist slipped free enough for me to pull it closer to my side. "Get us out!" Michael yelled again while continuing to pound on the glass with all his might. Every kick sent shards flying into the car's interior, scattering like confetti at a funeral. The sound echoed around us, a cruel reminder of our precarious situation. Ignoring the pain throbbing in my skull, I wrestled further against my bindings until they finally yielded enough for me to slip one arm free. "I'm coming!" I shouted back, adrenaline surging through me as I yanked on the door handle with all my strength. It refused to budge at first, panic clawed at me again, but then it gave way with a creak that cut through the stillness outside. I tumbled out onto the icy ground beneath me, gasping as cold seeped through my uniform like an unwelcome embrace. The world around us appeared surreal. The patrol car sat crumpled against a snowbank like an abandoned toy left behind by children who had lost interest too soon. "John! We need to get John out!" My words burst forth urgently as I staggered back toward the cruiser. Michael's frantic movements caught my eye. he had managed to break part of the windshield away and was now attempting to reach John through the jagged opening. A knot tightened in my stomach again, his face was strained in concentration as he fought against gravity and time. "Help me." Michael's voice broke through another layer of panic building inside me. I hurried around to John's side of the vehicle just as he stirred slightly, his eyes fluttered open momentarily before rolling back into unconsciousness again. "No. Stay with us," I urged desperately, pushing myself against what remained of the passenger door frame. With every ounce of strength left in him, Michael pulled John's limp body closer while I squeezed into position beside them both. Every second felt crucial now more than ever. "We need to lift him," I said urgently. Together we worked in frantic unison, each breath measured against time, and somehow managed to wrangle John from his seatbelt's grasping hold and onto solid ground beside us. My pulse quickened further when he groaned softly but made no effort to respond otherwise. Worry surged anew through every fiber of my being. Just then, we heard it, a distant rumble reverberating through our fractured reality like thunder rolling across ominous skies. "What was that?" Michael asked breathlessly while scanning our surroundings for answers that seemed hidden beyond our grasp. "I don't know." An uneasy chill snaked down my spine as I looked toward where sounds were growing louder, a low growl intermingling with wind rustling through trees nearby. "There might be something out there," Michael said cautiously while adjusting himself next to John for support. Instinctively moving closer together felt necessary now more than ever. We were united by fear rather than choice amidst this unforgiving wilderness slowly closing in around us. I shook off anxiety that threatened paralysis within me. I couldn't let despair win today, not when lives hung so precariously upon this moment. "Let's find cover," I urged decisively while glancing towards nearby woods that loomed ahead like looming giants watching our every move. With great effort and teamwork born from urgency alone, we dragged John further from destruction's reach into those towering trees, eager for refuge under their protection instead. As we stumbled forward into deeper darkness beneath branches swaying overhead, I realized something profound. Survival meant embracing fear rather than succumbing entirely. My heart raced not just from terror but an undeniable awareness that whatever lay beyond these trees might be worse than any nightmare conjured by imagination alone. In those moments marked by chaos yet bonded by purpose, we pressed onward together toward uncertainty fueled by hope alone, an unwritten script waiting patiently for its next act beneath winter's chilling gaze. The silence that enveloped the forest felt unnatural, almost suffocating, as I stood beside the crumpled patrol car. My breath came in quick bursts, visible against the frigid air. I heard John's strained voice call out from the front seat, "My leg. I can't feel my leg." A chill crawled down my spine as I took a hesitant step towards the car, sensing something profoundly off about his tone. It echoed through me like a haunting melody. "Hang on, John. We're coming." I shouted back, my heart racing with urgency. Panic flooded my thoughts as I wrestled with the door of the vehicle, desperate to get to him. But as I peered inside, dread washed over me like ice water. His face was twisted in agony, yet there was something else, a stark stillness that didn't match his words. Michael's frantic footsteps crunched through the snow as he approached from behind me. His eyes were wide with disbelief, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach at the sight of him. "No way," he stammered. "The road's just gone. It's just forest." The gravity of his words sank into me like lead. The realization hit that we were utterly alone in this vast wilderness. I turned back toward the passenger side where John should have been sitting but was met only with empty space and a warped door swinging eerily in the wind. The ground outside had deep gouges in the mud, trails of dragging marks where John's body should have been. "John?" I called out again, my voice trembling now. Standing there in stunned silence, an icy whisper wrapped around me like a death shroud. It seemed to come from directly behind me. "Jessica, it's so cold." My heart lurched violently in my chest as recognition surged through me, but it wasn't genuine, it was a grotesque imitation. The sound twisted through my mind like a knife. Realization struck with chilling clarity: John was truly gone. Desperation clawed at my insides as primal terror gripped me. I spun around instinctively to confront whatever had invaded our reality. The trees loomed ominously around me, their branches swaying gently as if they were witnesses to some dark ceremony unfolding beneath them. My fingers trembled against the icy steel of the cruiser, every instinct screamed at me to flee. "Michael!" I shouted, feeling a surge of urgency push me forward towards him. "We need to get out of here." But even as those words escaped my lips, a sinking feeling took hold of me. I wasn't sure where we could go. Michael glanced up sharply from his frantic search for any signs of life beyond our trapped existence. His face reflected fear and confusion intermingled, an expression that mirrored my own thoughts swirling chaotically within me. "What do we do?" he asked breathlessly, glancing back toward the vehicle's open door. I felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness wash over me and struggled to formulate a plan amidst this creeping dread that wrapped itself around us like an unshakable fog. "We can't stay here. We have to find help." Suddenly, behind us came another rustle, an unmistakable shift in the underbrush that made my skin crawl. My heart raced faster now as I turned slowly toward its source. Shadows danced among the trees, shifting and molding into shapes that were almost human, but not quite. "Jessica," that voice again, the echoing whisper held an unsettling familiarity that sent chills coursing through my veins once more. With every passing second, dread coiled tighter around my chest until it felt like an iron vice squeezing out all hope and reason. "Stop! Stop it!" I shouted into the darkness around us, desperate for it all to end but knowing deep down that it wouldn't let us go so easily. "What's happening?" Michael asked urgently beside me, eyes darting nervously across our surroundings. I could barely articulate how deeply wrong everything felt. The air thickened with malevolence and despair, each rustle seemed amplified by our isolation amidst these trees that bore witness but offered no refuge or solace. "I don't know," I managed to choke out between breaths thickening with fear and confusion. Then came another sound, a sickening crack echoed through the woods as if something had stepped on twigs deliberately placed for maximum effect. The air shifted around us again as whispers spiraled through branches overhead, a cacophony of distorted voices mingling in twisted harmony. "Jessica, come play." The hairs on my arms stood on end as dread pooled deeper within me. This was not just fear, it was something darker stalking us relentlessly from within those shadows. "Michael!" My voice rang out like thunder against stillness as panic surged anew within me. I could feel every nerve ending igniting while adrenaline coursed through my veins urging action rather than inaction. He turned sharply at my command but recoiled instantly when he saw what lay before us. A figure emerged from behind one of those gnarled trees cloaked in shadows yet unmistakably familiar. John's likeness stood there, eyes wide yet vacant with an otherworldly sheen reflecting nothing but darkness and despair. I staggered backward instinctively. Terror washed over me like tidal waves crashing upon rocky shores. Every ounce of instinct screamed for flight. But all I could do was stand frozen before this horrifying reflection of loss manifesting right before us. "Jessica," it said softly again, its voice akin to honey dripping from thorns. "It didn't belong here." "No!" I screamed defiantly against this apparition masquerading as John. It couldn't be real. I turned away abruptly toward Michael who stood frozen next to me. Together we shared an unspoken bond forged by fear and disbelief, the certainty that whatever lay ahead would not relent easily nor yield any kindness. Together we stumbled backwards deeper into uncertainty, my heart pounding ferociously within my chest until it threatened to burst free from its confines altogether. We had entered a nightmare far removed from anything we understood or anticipated, a place where echoes played tricks on our minds while shadows loomed ever closer, and salvation remained just beyond reach. In that moment, the world blurred into chaos, and all semblance of control slipped away. The forest surrounded us entirely, a prison without bars where only darkness thrived, and true horror began its descent upon us. The cold air stung my cheeks as I sprinted through the dense underbrush, each breath a sharp gasp that echoed in the stillness around me. I clutched the flare gun tightly, my knuckles white against its worn metal frame. The pounding of my heart reverberated in my ears as I darted from one tree to another, desperately seeking refuge. Michael was somewhere behind me, his frantic calls slicing through the silence like a knife. "Jessica! Over here!" His voice trembled, barely masking the panic that gripped him. I glanced back, catching a glimpse of him just as he stumbled into view. He was scanning the tree line, eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for something I feared we both knew was there. "We have to keep moving," I shouted, urging him forward. At that moment, a chilling sound pierced the air, a repetitive click, 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 coming from above us. My breath caught in my throat as dread washed over me like ice water. It confirmed my worst fears. The smiling face was back and closer than ever. The weight of its presence pressed down on my chest like an unseen hand squeezing tighter with each passing second. I forced myself to run faster, lungs burning as I pushed through the deep snow toward the skeletal silhouette of the old fire tower looming in the distance. It stood there like a forgotten sentinel guarding some ancient secret. My instincts screamed that it was our only chance for survival, if we could just reach it. "Michael!" I called again, looking back only to see him faltering under an unseen weight. Panic surged within me when he cried out, "It's pulling me down." My blood ran cold at his words, time seemed to freeze as terror gripped me. I turned fully towards him, finding his face twisted in agony and fear. With urgency coursing through my veins, I aimed the flare gun at the swirling mass that ensnared him, dark tendrils slithering around his legs like hungry serpents. "Hold on!" I shouted fiercely, my voice barely audible over the howling wind as adrenaline surged through every fiber of my being. I fired the flare into the murky darkness above us, a blinding burst of crimson light illuminating everything for a fleeting moment. The tendrils recoiled violently at the sudden brightness, their grip loosening just enough for Michael to scramble upward toward freedom. "Climb! Get to safety!" My voice rang out above everything else, the wind, the eerie clicking sounds, becoming a lifeline tethering us to hope. I watched as Michael frantically grabbed hold of the ladder leading up to the tower's platform and began climbing with desperate urgency. Each rung creaked ominously under his weight while shadows danced below him like malevolent spirits waiting for their chance. But I couldn't just stand there. Fear gnawed at me as I glanced over my shoulder at what lurked behind us, the darkness pulsating with a life of its own and whispering promises of despair. A primal instinct kicked in. I raced after Michael's ascending figure, scrambling up after him with every ounce of strength left within me. The wood beneath my hands felt rough and unforgiving as I climbed higher and higher into uncertainty. When I reached the top platform, gasping for breath and freezing air filled my lungs like fire, my eyes darting back towards where Michael had vanished into shadows once more. Suddenly, an echoing cry shattered whatever fleeting sense of safety had enveloped me moments before. "Help! Jessica!" His voice pierced through my foggy mind, a blend of terror and desperation that made every hair on my body stand on end. No. My heart sank deeper than it ever had before as dread consumed me whole. I rushed forward to peer over the edge but stopped short at what awaited below. Michael was entangled in those writhing shadows again. They pulled him down relentlessly toward an abyss that seemed to open beneath our feet like some dark maw ready to swallow him whole. Michael! I screamed again. Hopelessness swirled within me as tears threatened to fall unbidden down my cheeks. Desperation clawed at my insides. How could this be happening? Shoot it again, he yelled frantically from below amidst strangled breaths filled with fear. With trembling hands shaking against cold steel and adrenaline surging anew through every vein in my body, I raised the flared gun once more, this time with determination fueling each movement rather than doubt or hesitation. Taking aim down into chaos swirling below us felt surreal. The world around us narrowed into focus until all that remained was Michael's frightened face staring up at mine while shadows writhed hungrily just beyond his reach. With all that remained within me focused on saving him, I pulled the trigger once more, the flare erupting into bright flames that lit up even our darkest thoughts momentarily before illuminating reality itself again. The tendrils recoiled violently away from him once more, their hold loosening enough for Michael to break free from their grasp. Relief surged within me as he climbed desperately upward again, fear and determination igniting anew in those final moments. When he reached me finally panting heavily, his eyes wild with relief reflecting mine, I felt hope crackling between us amidst despair's ever-encroaching darkness threatening our very existence still lurking below. But now we stood together on this precarious precipice facing whatever lay ahead hand in hand against something so much greater than ourselves. In those moments of triumph mixed with anxiety coursing through our veins, we knew we had defied whatever sought to consume us whole, and yet deep down lingered uncertainty about what came next. As we both stood side by side atop that fire tower overlooking vast stretches beyond, knowing full well this wasn't over yet. The silence pressed down on me like a heavy blanket as I crouched in the musty cabin, my breath fogging in the frigid air. I dragged the heavy metal table and an old, dusty chair against the hatch, every muscle aching with exertion and terror. Each scrape of metal against the wooden floor echoed like a warning bell, reminding me of how vulnerable I truly was. The radio sat silent in the corner, a mocking presence with its gaping maw of what-ifs. I couldn't help but think of Michael, his desperate cries still ringing in my ears, and the suffocating weight of uncertainty that wrapped around me. I hugged my knees to my chest, trembling as the cold seeped deeper into my bones. The cabin felt like a tomb, shadows flickered in the dim light, and every noise outside seemed amplified. I listened intently for the dragging footsteps circling the tower, each sound a hammer blow to my sanity. My heart raced as I recalled that fleeting moment when Michael had disappeared, his face twisted in fear before he vanished into the dark abyss beyond my reach. At that moment, panic surged within me as a chilling laugh erupted from outside, shrill and haunting. It reverberated through my mind, bringing forth visions of horrors beyond comprehension. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to breathe steadily as dread clawed at my insides. What kind of creature could produce such a sound? The thought sent shivers cascading down my spine. I knew I had to stay awake. Fatigue threatened to engulf me like an insidious fog creeping into my thoughts. The laughter echoed again, a taunting melody accompanied by whispers that danced just beyond the threshold of understanding. "You're next," they seemed to say. My heart pounded louder in response. Desperation gnawed at me as adrenaline coursed through my veins. I stood abruptly and paced back and forth across the narrow cabin floor, my mind racing with thoughts of escape. What if there was a way out? A chance to outsmart whatever hunted me? I needed to gather every ounce of strength and cunning within me if I were to survive this nightmare. Grabbing the flare gun tightly, its familiar weight was both reassuring and terrifying. it felt like my only weapon against unseen horror. Each moment stretched painfully, time felt elastic yet immovable all at once. In that oppressive stillness, flashes of memory invaded my thoughts, laughter shared with friends over coffee, warmth from sunlit afternoons spent hiking through green valleys, everything that felt far removed from this chilling reality. Those memories ignited a flicker of determination within me. If I survived this nightmarish ordeal, I would cherish those moments even more. Suddenly, a loud thud resonated from outside, jolting me back to reality. My heart raced again as dread settled back into its rightful place, deep in the pit of my stomach. "No! No!" I whispered urgently under my breath, willing myself not to succumb to fear's paralyzing grip. I had made it this far, there had to be a way out. With renewed resolve flooding through me like wildfire, I glanced towards the window, the only barrier between myself and whatever prowled beyond. Snowflakes flurried outside like lost souls searching for sanctuary amidst despairing shadows cast by towering trees. Taking a deep breath, I moved closer to peer out cautiously. What lay beyond was nothing short of grotesque, a distorted figure silhouetted against an eerie glow emanating from somewhere deep within the forest's embrace. My throat tightened as I squinted harder. Was it watching me? A chill cascaded through every nerve ending as realization struck. This was no mere animal lurking outside but something far more sinister and intelligent than anything I'd ever faced before. I stumbled back from the window just as it turned its head towards me, a grotesque smile carved on its face that sent waves of nausea crashing over me anew. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape while there was still time, but where would I go? My options dwindled rapidly as panic gnawed away at rational thought. Then came another laugh, far too close for comfort, and suddenly all doubts vanished. This thing wanted me. It wanted blood. My pulse hammered relentlessly against my temples as primal fear ignited within me once more. "Stay calm," I muttered fiercely under clenched teeth while forcing myself into action once again, no longer willing to cower in helplessness before an incomprehensible terror. I rushed toward what remained of our supplies scattered haphazardly around the room. There had to be something else. Searching frantically yielded little more than empty wrappers and broken remnants until finally, my fingers brushed against something solid beneath layers of dust, a rusty crowbar. A newfound sense of hope surged through me even amidst despair's suffocating grip. I clutched it tightly against my chest like a talisman against fate's cruel hand. Outside sounds began shifting again. The dragging footsteps resumed their circling rhythm around the cabin while laughter transformed into something darker still. Whispers filled with malice grew louder surrounding all sides until nothing else existed but their cruel symphony. My mind raced uncontrollably. This couldn't be how it ended. Not here, not now. With each passing moment amplifying tension taut enough to snap, I knew what needed doing. Confront whatever haunted these woods head-on. Gripping tight onto that crowbar with purpose coursing through every vein, I took one last glance around before bursting toward exit's threshold determinedly. I would not go gently into that dark night, not without fighting for every breath left inside these trembling lungs. With adrenaline surging fiercely, I burst forth from those musty walls determinedly stepping into unknown chaos awaiting just beyond. The air inside the cabin felt stifling as I forced myself to stand, my legs stiff from crouching for too long. I began systematically searching the cramped space, my acute observational skills kicking in like a flickering light in the darkness. Every creak of the floorboards underfoot resonated with urgency, and I scanned every corner, desperate for anything that could aid in my survival. My gaze landed on the rusty old maps pinned to the wall. They were faded relics of a time long past, but I hoped they might still hold some clues about the terrain surrounding me. I approached them cautiously, tracing my fingers over the worn lines and symbols. My heart raced as I thought about what lay outside, what monstrous entity might be lurking just beyond those walls. I needed to find patterns, anything that could give me an edge over whatever hunted me. As I studied the maps, a tattered notebook slipped from a shelf above me and landed at my feet with a soft thud. I bent down to retrieve it, feeling a rush of excitement mixed with dread as I opened its pages. The entries detailed old ranger observations about unnatural stillness and mimicked sounds, exactly what had haunted me since the moment Michael vanished. My worst fears were confirmed. This entity had been here before, stalking its prey with calculated malice. I paused for a moment, allowing my memories to flood back unbidden. I remembered countless instances where I'd felt the need to prove my innocence, whether to others or to myself. In this moment of reflection, it struck me that this fight was no longer just about survival. It was a new kind of redemption, not for those around me but for myself. If I could conquer this terror, perhaps I could silence that nagging voice in my head that whispered doubts about my worthiness. I gripped the notebook tightly, knowing it contained more than mere words. It held fragments of truth that propelled me forward despite every instinct screaming to give up. There was something deeper at stake here, my moral debt and the promise I made to always pursue the truth no matter how dark or terrifying it became. Suddenly, an unexpected sound pulled me from my thoughts. A sharp scrape against the outer wall sent chills racing down my spine. My breath caught as panic surged within me once more. The laughter from before echoed faintly outside, now twisted into something darker and more sinister. It felt as if it were calling out specifically for me. I glanced at the window again, heart pounding against my ribcage like a war drum urging me onward into battle. With shaky hands gripping both the flare gun and crowbar tightly, I moved back towards the doorframe where shadows danced ominously on the edges of dim light filtering through cracks in the wood. My resolve intensified with each passing moment. I would confront whatever awaited beyond those walls head-on. With a sudden rush of adrenaline fueling every step, I prepared myself to burst out into chaos. Time slowed as dread twisted into exhilaration. Everything sharpened around me. The air grew thick with anticipation. Stepping outside was like entering another world entirely. The biting cold hit me anew, but it was different now. It felt like armor against fear instead of a paralyzing force. The moon hung high above like an indifferent sentinel watching over this forsaken land. Shadows shifted among trees that loomed over me like ancient giants guarding secrets long buried. With each cautious step forward through deep drifts of snow crunching beneath my boots, my senses heightened. Every rustle became significant, a warning or perhaps even a beckoning challenge. As I ventured deeper into this treacherous expanse, determination coursed through every vein. There would be no retreat today. The whispers returned then, a cacophony intertwining with laughter that morphed into something almost melodic yet tinged with malice. It surrounded me like fog creeping in from all sides, unseen but palpable, and suddenly clarity struck. These voices were not merely taunts, they were luring me toward their web of deception. Panic surged again as realization dawned upon me. I needed to break free from their grasp. A primal urge ignited within, survival instincts kicked in fiercely as adrenaline surged anew. I sprinted toward where light flickered ahead, a sign of civilization, or perhaps false hope. Each footfall felt heavy yet invigorating. Purpose drove me onward through swirling flurries obscuring everything familiar behind layers of white haze. Rounding a bend in what seemed like endless forest revealed silhouettes moving among trees ahead, figures cloaked by shadows yet undeniably human-shaped. My heart raced faster than ever, the question echoing relentlessly, friend or foe? Hello? My voice rang out into the stillness, breaking apart its oppressive hold like glass shattering underfoot. Panic surged within at their lack of response. Something felt off. This wasn't normal. Fear mingled with hope, creating an intoxicating cocktail, spurring frantic thoughts before sanity washed away entirely. Then came another laugh, the same haunting sound echoing close by. I turned sharply towards its source only to see nothing but darkness swallowing everything whole. Desperation clawed at my throat as realization settled deep. Whatever stalked us had become emboldened. With renewed vigor propelling every movement forward, I stumbled upon footprints leading away from where those figures once stood, towards deeper woods beckoning ominously. Without hesitation, I chose pursuit over retreat. I wouldn't become another ghost lost within these cursed woods. As trees closed in around me again, their gnarled branches clawing at clothing and skin alike, I steadied myself against unseen forces threatening to pull back into despair's embrace once more. Each breath felt labored yet vital. One step after another carried weight beyond comprehension. In truth, I was fighting not just for survival, but also for clarity amidst chaos, the promise made long ago echoing louder than laughter, resounding through chilling night air. No longer would fear dictate actions taken, nor allow darkness to prevail, not while there existed one last ember glowing brightly within, heart yearning desperately for freedom. With resolve etched across face, resolutely illuminated against backdrop filled with uncertainty, I stepped forth, determinedly embracing whatever lay ahead. This journey wasn't merely about escaping shadows anymore, but reclaiming what was lost a long way. The first sliver of gray light pierced the gloom as dawn approached, a weak promise of morning that barely penetrated the shadows of my despair. I stood on the cabin's creaky floor, eyes glued to the window, feeling a fragile hope bloom in my chest. It was strange to think that daylight could bring comfort when I had spent so long in darkness. The biting cold still clung to me, but now it felt different, less suffocating, more like a reminder that I had survived another night. I watched as the light slowly spread across the snow-draped landscape outside. It illuminated the pristine white blanket covering everything, making it appear untouched and innocent. A creeping chill ran down my spine as I noticed there were no tracks leading away from where I had spent the night, no signs of the horror that had pursued me. It felt like a cruel joke, a lie crafted by whatever malevolent force haunted these woods. My heart raced as I thought about how easily it could all be erased from existence, the terror, my struggle, all hidden beneath an illusion of peace. Then I heard it, the rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades in the distance, faint at first but growing louder with each passing moment. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard, signaling my imminent rescue. My pulse quickened in anticipation, relief surged through me like a tidal wave sweeping away remnants of fear and dread. Perhaps this nightmare would finally come to an end. I stepped out into the cold air, which now felt strangely invigorating against my skin. The snow crunched underfoot as I moved cautiously toward where I thought I'd see them, a sign of hope amidst the desolation. Each step filled me with conflicting emotions, joy at the prospect of being saved but also lingering unease about what lay behind me, what I had endured in these woods. As I reached a clearing, the helicopter emerged into view, its rotors slicing through the morning calm with authority. My heart pounded wildly as they lowered a rope ladder, sunlight glinting off their metallic surface like salvation itself. "Over here!" I yelled, urgency fueling my voice despite its tremor. I climbed up that ladder with every ounce of strength left in me, each rung a step further away from those accursed woods that had tried to claim me. As soon as I reached the open door and was pulled inside by rescue personnel clad in thick jackets and helmets, warmth enveloped me, a stark contrast to everything I'd known just hours before. The hum of machinery filled my ears as we lifted off into the sky, leaving behind not just the cabin but everything that had occurred within its walls, the laughter and whispers that still echoed in my mind like ghosts refusing to fade away. Relief washed over me as we ascended higher. It felt like shedding skin too tight for comfort. Yet even amid this newfound safety, an unsettling change settled deep within my soul, a part of me forever marked by those Arkham woods. The memories flickered behind my eyes like shadows slipping away from light. They were always there, haunting yet strangely comforting in their familiarity. I turned to look out at what lay below us, the vast expanse of trees stretching endlessly toward horizons unseen, and realized how much had shifted inside me during those harrowing nights alone. There would be no return to normalcy. Pieces of myself were lost forever among those twisted branches and whispers hidden within darkness. In time, I knew I'd be going back to a world that wouldn't believe what happened, that couldn't fathom what lurked just beyond sight or understanding. The injustice would remain intact, even if only one other person truly understood my experience, my truth. I would carry it like armor against ignorance. The helicopter's descent began as we approached civilization once more. Familiar sights came into view, paved roads and buildings nestled comfortably against nature's sprawling reach, but they felt foreign now, alien against everything I'd endured. As we landed safely at an emergency services compound buzzing with activity and chaos around me, something shifted deep within my chest. Understanding dawned anew. Survival wasn't simply about escaping physical danger but confronting deeper fears rooted within oneself, the darkness always waiting patiently to seize upon vulnerability. That day marked not just an escape but also an awakening, a realization that life's beauty often coexists with horrors lurking beneath its surface. Each moment cherished becomes brighter when juxtaposed against shadows cast by fear itself. Today, when I look back on those freezing nights encased within terror's embrace, every chilling laugh echoing through corridors thick with dread, I remember how resilience can forge strength from desperation and courage from uncertainty. I learned that darkness may never fully dissipate, but acknowledging it brings power, that while scars may linger hauntingly along paths traversed through fear and doubt, they are reminders of battles fought bravely rather than mere marks left behind by cowardice or surrender. I would carry both light and shadow forward into whatever awaited next on this tumultuous journey called life, a path strewn with echoes etched forever in memory yet shimmering brightly amid all possibilities ahead.